Hi, I'm Ashleigh.
Hello, I'm Giaan.
And I'm Tahli, and this is our EUB305 Assessment 2 lesson sequence.
Today we're going to discuss with you our geographical sequential lesson plan and fieldwork.
We'll be focusing on Year 5 and the Milton floods.
Geography is a significant topic that allows students to understand the world physically, socially, culturally, economically, politically, environmentally, and technologically. It empowers students to shape change for a socially just and sustainable future through higher order thinking. Students develop their interdisciplinary skills whilst also understanding the need to take responsibility and become global citizens through ethical processes. Geography also enables students to question why the world is the way it is and enhance their relationship between themselves and the environment. Students can use a diverse range of sources and evaluate qualitative and quantitative data too.
The lessons are aimed for Year 5 students. The lesson plans link to geographical and HASS curriculum content descriptors and also include cross-curricular priorities. The aim of the geographical sequential lessons are for students to understand floods, their effects and possible strategies for future flooding. Links can be made to ICT, literacy and numeracy. Students can connect with their lessons as it focuses on the community, Milton. Differentiation occurs throughout the lesson plans when the educator supports students with questions and pedagogy approaches.
In all lessons, students are given the content goal at the start of the lesson. As it is known, students' performance is higher if they understand what they are aiming for and can draw knowledge from previously learned content. The pedagogy used is directly related to the content descriptor. The pedagogy in the lesson plan follows the geographical inquiry approach, which allows students to ask questions about a geographical issue, to gather and analyse relevant data about the issue, and examine solutions or rational alternatives. Also, many of the lessons follow an I do, we do, you do model. This approach supports students' development of skills as the class is scaffolded to allow students to become independent learners and collaborate with their fellow students. Bloom's taxonomy is seen throughout the duration of the lessons. Higher order thinking is continually seen when students are able to discuss their findings. Creating occurs when the students are to construct their own questions in relation to the fieldwork. Creating allows students to think creatively and outside of the box.
The first lesson is titled Flood Mapping. The lesson goal is to identify areas of flooding by using the Flood Awareness Map, an interactive flood mapping software that is created for the Brisbane area. The students will also develop their mathematical skills through bolts: order, orientation, legend, title, scale, and source. Our students are required to annotate the interactive flood maps in OneNote too. The second lesson is titled Exploring Water. The students are to model different types of floods and assess the effects of these floods. It is a hands-on approach and allows students to develop their sensory and motor-related skills. Students will also build on their literacy skills when communicating in the discussion part of this section. The third lesson is titled Development of Land in Relation to Floods. Students will be given the 1974 and 2011 topographic maps of the Milton area, as well as the similarities and differences, such as land elevation and the expansion and decrease in floods. Students will work in groups to determine the differences and share with the class their findings. The fourth lesson is titled Pre-Fieldwork Preparation. This lesson, students are required to join their pre-selected groups and prepare for fieldwork. Students will discuss natural and man-made features and formulate inquiry questions in qualitative and quantitative data tables.
Leading up to the fieldwork, students have learnt about the history of flooding in Brisbane with particular focus on their community, Milton. Geography skills such as graphing and mapping was taught to enhance students' capability in order to effectively conduct the fieldwork. Discussing safety procedures with students prior to the fieldwork is an important part of the fieldwork and learning life skills. Safety procedures to cover with students will be as follows: crossing major roads, walking in groups of 10 until reaching the Milton shopping precinct, breaking off into smaller groups when conducting fieldwork, and then meeting at the fishery and returning to school with a group. Moving in groups increases student safety and collaboration, which is outlined in the Australian curriculum. Likewise, establishing meeting points increases student safety and allows students to feel safe in unfamiliar or busy environments. Once students are at the fishery at Milton, they will break off into smaller groups of 4 or 5 to make observations of Milton area. Prior to this, students have studied Milton area and understand what type of findings to look out for in order to make effective observations for their investigation. Students will use the printed interactive flood map of Milton to assist their observations and understand what businesses were affected by the floods. As a result, this will guide students to interview businesses that were directly affected by the 2011 floods. Students will need a pencil, paper, clipboards, tables for their tallies, the interactive flood map of Milton, and their field trip booklet, which contains their interview questions and observation notes. For this part of the fieldwork, students will ask community members if they were affected by the flood. They will tally their responses as affected or unaffected. This will determine the severity of flooding. Community members who responded as affected will then be questioned with the following inquiry questions developed in class. Questions could include: what was the height of the water level and where was the highest point? What was the cost of rebuilding? What did you do when it flooded? Did you receive any help? Are you prepared for another flood? How would small, medium and large businesses be affected by the floods? And since 2011, how many flood prevention strategies has the council implemented? For example, drains, flood runoff and land distribution. Here is an example of what students may question the public. I interviewed a local business owner.
Were you affected during the 2011 floods here in Milton?
Yes, we were affected, yeah. We were in the flood zone and we did receive, unfortunately, a lot of flooding in our premises, yes.
How did you deal with the floods while it was happening?
So before the flood came, we were given a little bit of warning from the SES. So we laid sandbags down and moved everything to the highest point in our factory that we could to minimise the damage, and we carted away from site the things that were valuable paperwork, computers, electricals, things like that. So we got those off site as quickly as we could.
Okay. And did you receive any help while the flooding was happening?
Yes, we did. We received some help from some volunteers from the SES that laid some sandbags for us and from many other businesses in the street, which was great.
Awesome. Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you.
From the survey completed in their fieldwork, students will be able to discuss their results amongst their peers. From this data, students will formulate comparative graphs, analyse and make conclusions. Students will then come up with key strategies to prepare and decrease the severity and impact of future flooding. For the next lesson, students and their groups will present their findings orally to the class, including their data, graphs, conclusions and strategies as their summative assessment. Through these sequential lesson plans, students will have targeted many of the achievement standards for the year, including explain the characteristics of places in different locations at local to national scales, identify and describe characteristics of places and the effects of these interconnections on the characteristics of places and environments, develop appropriate geographical questions for an investigation, locate, collect and organise data and information from a range of sources to answer inquiry questions, represent data and location of places and their characteristics, as well as interpret maps, geographical data and other information.
The students are also able to learn civics and citizenship concepts. They will become global citizens, which is a key goal outlined by the Melbourne Declaration of Education.
Students will be able to positively influence and support community members if another flood occurs.
Also, the lesson plan supports all students and targets key knowledge and understanding skills as well as HASS concepts.
Thank you for listening to our presentation of a sequential Year 5 lesson for flooding.